Hi, good morning to everyone. I'm very honored to be here today to talk about arts and culture, which is a topic very close to my heart. A studio art graduate from Pomona College and chairman of both Tycoon, Culture and Arts, and Palace Museum, I'm excited that you have included arts and culture as an important characteristic of future cities. Now, 30 or even 20 years ago, there wasn't much of a career track in Hong Kong for art graduates beyond being an artist, perhaps a performer or a teacher, as there wasn't really an arts ecosystem. In order for arts and culture to flourish in any city, it is not enough to just have a couple of museums and galleries. A thriving ecosystem needs to be purposefully and organically grown from a community of artists, performing art venues, museum, creative support services, and last but not least, a commercial financial structure to sustain the artistic community. Without funding or a market for artists' work, there can't be a healthy arts ecosystem. So historically, Hong Kong has been a premier international financial center, acting as the gateway to China and a bridge between China and the rest of the world. However, compared to other international financial centers, such as New York and London, Hong Kong was missing a vibrant arts and cultural scene. This is no longer true. Hong Kong has emerged as Asia's cultural and commercial art hub. In keeping with its position as an international financial center, Hong Kong is one of the world's biggest art trading center. In 2020, Hong Kong's global art market share rose to 23.2%, overtaking London. We are now the second largest contemporary art auction market in the world, just behind New York. Even during the pandemic, Hong Kong has seen record-breaking art sales. The commercial aspect is important because it has brought in the private sector and provided a platform to showcase regional and local artists. International auction houses and art galleries have flocked to Hong Kong, pushing the boundaries and adding to the cultural diversity of the art scene. Hong Kong's emergence as a cultural art hub was predated by its dynamic film and music industries. In the heyday of Hong Kong cinema in the mid-80s to the mid-90s, Hong Kong was known as Hollywood of the East. We produced an average of 400 films a year, more per capita than any other market. During this period, Hong Kong was also the second largest exporter of films after the US. And Hong Kong cinema enjoyed a cult reputation in the West. We popularized entire genres of film, from kung fu, martial arts, and heroic action films. Bruce Lee remains a global icon, and his martial arts movies are classic. Jackie Chan, Jet Li are also household names. The man behind the groundbreaking action of The Matrix, Kill Bill, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is the famed martial arts choreographer Yuen Woo-ping. And let's not forget authors like John Woo and the award-winning Wong Kar-wai. Hong Kong has long been a global player in the art world, hosting the International Film Festival since 1976 and International Literary Festival since 2001, and since 2008, the Hong Kong Art Fair, which later morphed into Art Basel. In 2013, Hong Kong was the first foreign outpost for Art Basel and attract 60,000 people in its first year. From then on, Hong Kong's art scene has grown from strength to strength. Hong Kong government recognized the importance of art and culture and proactively support and promote its development. It make a strategic long-term investment to the tune of US $2.8 billion to build out the arts and culture infrastructures in the West Kowloon, which is near to the high-speed rail connecting to the mainland of China. And this fiscal year alone, the government allocated US $731 million to support arts and culture, excluding the capital works expenditure. It also announced the establishment of the Culture, Sports, and Tourism Bureau to facilitate the development of Hong Kong as a center for cultural exchange between China and the rest of the world. Now, the ambitious and visionary West Kowloon Cultural District project is one of the largest cultural projects in the world. When completed, it will be an integrated arts and culture hub comprised of 17 world-class theaters, museums, performing arts, and education venues on a prime 40-hectare waterfront site. Now already M+ Museum, Asia's first global museum of contemporary visual culture, has established itself in the same class as London's Tate Modern. With the Palace Museum opening next year, the West Kowloon Cultural District is well on its way to becoming a locus for arts and culture in the region. This will add to the revitalized heritage arts and culture centers of Tai Kwun and PMQ in Central and the Mills in Tsuen Wan. Also, the construction of the East Kowloon Cultural Center is underway and is expected to be completed by the end of this year for commissioning in 2023. Now, this is indeed an exciting time for Hong Kong's art scene. Although the hardware is an essential ingredient in an arts and culture ecosystem, just as important is the software or people talent. Now, obviously, it is a bit of a chicken and egg. With clusters of arts and performing art venues in place, now we can now turn to nurturing talent and providing support to foster that human infrastructure. A whole new generation of young artists, designers, photographers, digital illustrators, curators, performers, and backstage, to name a few, have a promising future to look forward to. The opportunities for local and overseas talent will be bountiful. And with our unique history and geostrategic location, Hong Kong serves as a nexus of cultural exchange between mainland China and overseas, and as a bridge between the East and West. Hong Kong's ambitious private sector and the philanthropic initiatives, and of course the government support for and investment in arts and culture have made Hong Kong into the so-called the cultural and commercial art capital of Asia. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think the time is exciting for Hong Kong and for the arts and culture scene in Hong Kong and in the region. So I'm happy to take on some questions that you may have in regard to this topic. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bernard, for sharing. I think today's event, we actually have 900 people signing up to join in and listen to this topic of arts and culture. And we often discuss that in the post-pandemic world, arts and culture may be the key that to help uplift the people's spirit again. And this is really a very important thing that we would like to rebuild in this new post-pandemic era. And that is why today we really look forward to seeing Hong Kong making to the next phase in this development, and then to really build an international, truly influential city of arts and culture in the world. And so, yes, thanks a lot for sharing. And here I would like to take the opportunity to really go into a little bit more details into something that you have just shared, which is the setting up of the new Bureau for Culture, Sports and Tourism in Hong Kong. What do you think would be the strategic significance of this new Bureau? And what can this new Bureau do as compared to the past? And what are the challenges that it aims to tackle? I would love to hear your opinions on this. Thanks.
Well, obviously, it's going to be a very new setup. So I'm yet to find out exactly what exactly is the plan. But what I can already tell you is in the past, arts and culture and sport and so on are all being lumped into one bureau, the Home Affairs Bureau. And within the Home Affairs Bureau, pretty much anything that doesn't fit into other bureaus fall under Home Affairs. So you can imagine that there are resource implications, there are also priorities issues. So arts and culture not necessarily always get a very dedicated focus or attention. So with this new bureau to be set up, hopefully under the new administration come next year, I think more focuses can be put on, and more resources can be then focused as well. So just by that alone, I know it means a lot to the entire ecosystem that I mentioned earlier, from whether it's from West Kowloon to the private sector to the entire the artist community. I think they have been asking for such a independent setup, with independent focuses within the arts and culture scenes. So I think that implication is also sending a signal too. It's sending a signal within the community as well as to the outside world that Hong Kong government is prepared to put this as a single focus, equal to perhaps others like financial centers. Hong Kong pride ourselves to be a leading financial center, a trade center, and so on. So arts and culture for the first time is now being put at the same level, as important as financial center, trade center, aviation, legal disputes, arbitration center. So it is that at that level. So I think the signaling is also important. And so, I'm very excited because I think this is something the industry has been asked for decades. So finally, I think, hopefully come the next administration next year, this will come into reality.
Yeah, certainly. And I think many people would agree that the very first thing that the new bureau, after setting up, would be to set a vision for Hong Kong's arts and culture. And in that, we need to capitalize our advantage of being the city of East meeting West. So the balance between the Western art and then also Chinese traditional modern art and Pan-Asia art would also be one of the things that the new bureau would need to kind of manage a fine balance between all these forms. So what would be your, how would you think that we can increase the visibility of Chinese art, Asian art as compared to Western art, which is more dominating the art scene right now?
Well, I mentioned earlier that this Hong Kong is going to be that whole East and West cultural exchange. Now this is not just Hong Kong talking. In fact, this is actually now part of China's 14 5-year plan. Hong Kong has been given that mandate as well. So we now serve not just Hong Kong's interests. We serve the entire nation's interest, China's interest, to promote the whole thing that you just talked about, the whole East and West exchanges. So one example I can actually just share with you is the Palace Museum to be open, next year sometime, hopefully in the middle of next year. I'm the chairman of Palace, so and I want to take this opportunity through your summit to tell everyone that Palace Museum Hong Kong is not just about showcasing the artifacts from Palace Beijing only. Surely that is going to be one of our top priorities. But we also serve a purpose. Our museum also serves the purpose to bring international artwork to Hong Kong, to China as well. So So we also work very closely with other European museums and so on. So Hong Kong has this unique position to able to be that bridge in serving Chinese art to the world and Western art to Hong Kong and to the mainland. So I think this is a very exciting time when, especially when the world is so divided on so many topics, particularly in vis-a-vis politics. But surely there are a lot of other things we can share and find common interests. And I believe arts and culture is one of them. So we don't necessarily always have to disagree on everything, right? I think in politics it's difficult to get everyone on board on the same plane. But I think human to human arts and culture will be a great platform to gain better understanding of each other.
Thanks. I think our audience of hundreds of attendees at the forum would really love to hear more about the upcoming Hong Kong Palace Museum. So it would be great if Bernard, you could share a little bit more about what is the unique positioning of the Palace Museum, what are the highlight items that will be shown at the museum, and also if the pandemic is over, then how would our overseas visitors or Chinese mainland visitors, when they come to Hong Kong, what is the one strong reason that they would definitely need to visit the Hong Kong Palace Museum?
Well, first thing first, you're right. We all hope the pandemic will be under control by then. We aim to open middle of next year, and obviously this is not just a one-off thing. So it's not just we already plan out an ongoing activities for the next couple of years. So it's very exciting. So one way or the other, I'm sure we all will be back to some form of normality and people can start to travel again. So I'm sure about that. It's a matter of when. Anyway, so we announced in the very first exhibition, we now already have an agreement with Beijing Palace Museum that they will lend us something over 900 pieces of their top artifacts. Many of those artifacts would not normally be allowed to leave the mainland. That's including Hong Kong. So we managed to get in agreement with them. Of course, we're still finalizing the details with them, but we're very excited with all these 900 plus of pieces of artwork coming to Hong Kong to share with the people of Hong Kong and with the world. And we also arranged with other museums. So I can share with you that immediately after that opening exhibition, we also have an agreement now work with the Liechtenstein, the government of the Kingdom of Liechtenstein. They will be working with us to showcase some of their collections. And we have other museums in Europe as well, already in agreement with us. So it's very exciting. So we will be for the first couple of years, very exciting collection, both Chinese collection as well as collection from other museums in the rest of the world be coming to Hong Kong. So that's exciting for us. Of course, there is always going to be a capacity issue. Our museum capacity, I think at any one time, probably about no more than 7,000, right? So we need to also manage that too as well. How do we cope with all the big demand, not just demand from local, but as you put it, once the pandemic is sort of under control, travel restriction is relaxed, I can imagine there will be people from the rest of the world coming to Hong Kong. They want to see, to come and see our collection, and as well as people from the GBA. It's such a close proximity, and Palace Museum is just literally next to the high-speed rail, connecting to the rest of GBA and the rest of China. So within hours, people can access to these amazing museums in Hong Kong. So the happy problem. We need to. I bet you, once these travel restrictions relax, everyone are dying to travel again. So you can imagine the offerings in West Kowloon and Plus and Palace Museum to start are such a exciting places for people to go to visit. And I'm sure Hong Kong is going to. I think what makes Hong Kong Palace Museum different from, say, the Palace Museum in Beijing or even the Palace Museum in Taipei is how differently we're going to present them. I think the key is how we tell the stories. The object is one thing. The most important thing is how better can we, or how different we interpret those objects, the stories. So I think we're going to have a very different, unique curatorial arrangement, and that's going to be uniquely Hong Kong, and especially with the culture setting as well. So I think that is going to help Hong Kong Palace Museum stands out. Now, I'm not saying we are better than a lot, but they're going to be different. I think each museum have their own characteristics, and we're going to be using a lot of technology, I think, to connect the story, connect with the visitors with the objects. So I think that's how I can foresee the Palace Hong Kong will be like going forward.
Wow, that's good to know. Thanks a lot, Bernard. Personally, I love traveling. I love visiting museums. I think going to a city and then go to see the museum would be a great way to learn more about the inner qualities of a city. So that's why I've traveled to like a lot of different places and maybe visited dozens of museums. And I do think that in this coming year, it will be like really exciting for Hong Kong if we are able to create something. We're just chatting this morning that if we can develop, say, a museum map for GBA to capture all of the great museums, of course, in Hong Kong. And I also see that there are a lot of new and thriving museums that are also very popular in Shenzhen, in Guangzhou, that we can all connect together and develop a museum pass for young people. I think this would be a great attraction to a lot of the visitors. And of course, young people would love to go there and see for themselves. So I think all of these are great. And thanks again a lot for sharing today, Bernard. We are all very excited. Really hope that the Hong Kong Palace Museum will have a great opening, and a lot of our visitors and attendees at the forum are very keen to visit the museum at some point in the future. So thanks a lot again, Bernard. Today's session is very, very fruitful. We really appreciate your time, and we are going to move on to the next few sessions, which are also about more about M+ and more about the local art scene. And Bernard, happy for you to stay for the following sessions, or else please feel free to proceed to exit the Zoom if you have another appointment. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Look forward to welcoming you.